to bed at her mother's request. Tucker and the others had made it clear that they were no threat to Josephine, but Raisa was taking no chances. Everyone got up when I closed in on them. I dropped my duffel on the settee beside Raisa, grabbed Roman's arm, and walked him into the small sitting room that opened out onto the breezeway. If you continued out the door and down the path, you would reach the converted pool house that had at one time been a greenhouse. Roman's mother had kept and cared for rare and delicate orchids, but after her death, he had donated them to botanical gardens all over the world. It was not his passion, and imagining the plants dying made him ill. "Quaid," he said, dropping his voice low as he put his hands on my hips, "we can't be apart." "You'll be fine. Linus and—" "I don't care about that," he said, stepping closer. "I'm not scared. I'm 27 years old, Quaid. I don't need a babysitter." "I know," I said, lifting my hand to touch his face, but then thinking better of it. "What are you doing?" he almost whined, sounding frustrated with the whole situation. "Since when don't you put your hands on me whenever you like?" "Listen to me," I instructed, my voice hard. "Everything just changed. Don't you understand that? I thought I was going back to a community of shifters that didn't want me. But from how Tucker and the others reacted, how much they didn't want to fight, I have an entirely different picture of my old pack." "Which means what?" "It means that after I challenge Ray," I said softly, "I might need to stay and help rebuild their hierarchy so the new Alpha can step in." "They're going to want you to be the Alpha," he assured me. "Some of them, yes, but not enough. I'm still gay, and for a lot of them that won't work." "But you saw those men," he argued. "They were ready to eviscerate you, and then you shifted and showed them how big and strong and beautiful you are, and they nearly wet themselves." I chuckled. "Please don't repeat that version to anyone else." "Quaid!" He was so cute, all pissed off, and puffed up that I couldn't resist. I curled over him and wrapped him up tight. "You are the king of saying one thing and doing another," he commented as he sighed happily, nestling comfortably against me in the circle of my arms. "I know," I felt guilty. "And you're afraid your father still hates you, and he might be horrible to me, and you can't even stand the thought of that, can you? Him being mean to me." "No," I rumbled, tipping his head so I could press my nose down into his shoulder and inhale his scent and carry it in my memory when I left. "You realize you're the only one who looks at me and sees something worth having beyond money or status. You're the only man on the planet who actually wants to go to bed with me, who thinks I'm sexy, and who I believe means what he says. There are lots of—" "We don't lie to each other, Quaid," he reminded me. "So don't. If you believe what I say when I tell you that you're desirable, why don't you believe me when I tell you others will want you too?" My neck. "You have 3 days before I get on a plane and come after you." "I'm still going to have to—" "Enough," he said, shushing me. "I don't want to hear anything but, 'Yes, Roman, I'll be home in 3 days.'" My lips hovered over his. "Yes, Roman, I'll be home in 3 days. "Good," he whimpered before I kissed him. I really had to stop ravishing the guy I was trying to leave. Chapter 9. It felt strange to be back in Phoenix after so many years. "Quaid," I turned from staring out the passenger side window to Tucker. "Please thank your mate for taking care of the car for us," he said from the driver's seat. "That would have cost us a mint." "Well, I'm the one that caved in the roof, so it was the least Roman and I could do." "Yeah, but I forgot to thank him before we left your castle. Traveling by private jet. Riding with lots of people grated on my nerves, and even though I realized how elitist I was being, I couldn't stop the anxiety from eating at my stomach. Fortunately, the plane wasn't full, probably because it was a red-eye, so no one bothered me, even the flight attendants, and I was left alone with my thoughts. Raisa, like Roman, had been insistent about accompanying me to Phoenix, but I had been equally insistent that she not. She felt that since her husband was okay, she should put herself in danger with me. I finally appealed to the mother and wife in her. She needed to stay at Lange with her daughter and go to the hospital the following morning to see her husband. "Promise to call," she said, the tears welling in her eyes, bottom lip quivering as she stood in the foyer saying goodbye to me. "Why are you upset?" "I just got you back," she cried, clutching me tight. Back. Every instinct screamed at me to go after him, but instead I left. My heart stayed behind with him, though, so I was missing it, feeling hollow, almost cold, as I drove away with the others. Now, in Phoenix, in the car, looking out the window first thing in the morning, I felt disjointed and ungrounded. Quaid? I'd been lost in my own thoughts, so I was not surprised to find Tucker studying me. Everything had changed so much. We drove north out toward Deer Valley from the airport, and I was surprised to see the number of homes and all the new construction, the shopping centers and apartment buildings. I had grown up in Orly, a small town that sat between the new-to-me Anthem and New River, which was on the way to Flagstaff. It was strange to see outlet malls, golf courses, and endless homes for sale from the highway. Once we were sitting down at a restaurant, I remembered in Orly, I asked Tucker whether he was in trouble. "How do you mean?" "I mean, you were supposed to bring back Raisa and Josie and kill me, right? I would call being here with you and you empty-handed a big fat failure." "You're a seer," Garrett, one of the others, chimed in. "I don't know what Ray was even thinking sending, He glanced over at his friend for help. "It makes no sense." "No, it doesn't," Tucker agreed with a shrug. "I don't really get it either." "What don't you get?" "Why Ray would send us to kill you when he knew that as soon as we caught your scent, we'd realize what you were." "But it shouldn't have mattered. He's your alpha," I reminded him. "You do what he says." "But that's the thing," another of the men said. "No alpha would ever send his men to kill a seer. The seer would simply kill the jackals he sent and then challenge him. I'm so confused." "And thank you," Tucker quipped, "for letting us live." "Thank you for not shooting me." "As if I could, once I knew what you were." "Yeah," Garrett said, smiling sheepishly, locking his gaze with mine. "Being close to you, walking with you, doing what you ask, even small things, it all seems right, like I'm supposed to be doing that, like I'm supposed to follow you. You don't know me, but if you did, you'd know. I don't like anyone giving me orders." I was quiet, observing him, and the way his gaze flicked away and then back to me, how he fidgeted in his seat, biting his bottom lip and fiddling with his paper napkin. I reached out and took hold of his wrist, rolled it over, and rubbed my thumb back and forth over the pulse point until I felt him calm. "I'm not like you," he muttered, his voice low and hoarse. "Not gay." "Okay," I acknowledged, continuing to touch him. "But this doesn't feel like that's what you want," he continued under his breath. "It just feels like you care." "Good," I said, smiling at him before I let go. He moved fast, slid his hand across the table, caught mine, and trapped it. "Alpha, don't pull away." "Come over here," I directed. "Change places with Tuck." The growl of warning from gentle, easygoing Tucker was unexpected. Suddenly I was seeing the animal. "I don't want to move." Everyone wanted to sit next to me. I lifted my hand to get the waitress's attention. When she got there, I watched her transformation from mildly flirtatious to jaw-dropping surprise. "Quaid? Quaid Danas?" I had no clue who. "I'm Deirdre Rawlings. I'm Raisa's friend." "Oh, yes," I said. "Dee, I remember. How are you?" "Good," she said, her gaze all over me. "And you, too. Have you seen Raisa?" She came to see me, and she's staying until I can sort things out there in the middle of the diner. When I tried to let go, she squeezed tighter. Quaid? Glancing up, I found a man hovering a few feet away, hand lifted in greeting, gracing me with a shy smile. Ed? I was fairly certain he was another friend from high school. Yes. He inhaled sharply in obvious relief before he came forward to put a hand on my shoulder. It's so good to see you. And that was how the rest of the morning went. Deirdre moved me to a bigger table, and Tucker and Garrett sat on either side. My old friend gave me space, but Garrett pressed up against me from knee to shoulder. I understood, though, as more and more jackals first circled and then darted in, smiling, hands extended to say hello. They missed having an alpha. There was a sense of peace, of calm, in knowing you were part of a pack, and that the pack itself could be led by someone you could count on and trust, who was absolutely, without question, stronger than you. Someone solid who could shoulder whatever you couldn't. An alpha was supposed to be a father, brother, protector, champion, and in some packs, lover. An outdated custom that a few packs still practiced said that all unmated females over the age of 20 were to be taken to their alpha and impregnated to ensure the survival of the species. Some clans I'd come across had made it a law. To me, it was a way to tie females to the pack leader with children, which, depending on the benevolence and strength of the alpha, could be a good thing or a really awful thing. Being impregnated without consent, I couldn't imagine anything worse. I was not a proponent of taking away anyone's rights, so when my father had decided to take a vote on it, rather than simply make the practice unlawful in his pack, I had been very vocal, even at 16. Except for the day I left, it was the only time I had seen my mother disappointed in my father. She had wanted him to be the champion of the pack females, and instead he had let the majority decide. Fortunately, the vote had gone the right way. Quaid? I was standing in the middle of a small group of people, talking, catching up, listening, when Tucker put a hand on my shoulder to get my attention. That was attention. Normally it was Roman who was mobbed, not me. So it felt good to get outside in the crisp December air and take a deep breath. Tires squealing over pavement caught my attention, and when I saw the van, I took cover behind the Toyota Highliner that Tucker had driven from the airport. Years in the Army, and then being Roman's bodyguard, all that vigilance was deeply ingrained in me. My instincts screamed flight, and I obeyed. A strafe of bullets from what I was guessing was an AK-47 struck everything but the SUV and me. I would have hit what I was shooting at, but I'd had training with an M16, M240, and finally an M24 during my days in the Army. Fortunately, the men Ray Garrison sent after me had not. In the wake of the drive-by shooting, there was shrieking and screaming, but thankfully no one was hurt. Most of the cars were a mess, but no one had even been grazed by a stray bullet. When Tucker and Garrett raced up, both looking breathless and terrified, I realized their fear was for me and not their own lives. You still think Ray's not mad? I said sarcastically. Tucker winced, like maybe, just maybe, my concern had some merit. The sirens in the distance were not a welcome sound. Life takes odd turns. It never occurred to me that since Orly was an hour from Phoenix, if someone came to investigate a drive-by, Del Irving would be the guy to do it. But like clockwork, after the regular patrolmen showed up, the next wave of law enforcement on site were two detectives. The first man I had never seen before.